This video is proudly sponsored by Gamersgate. Download games anytime, anywhere. Visit Gamersgate.com.
Welcome to Elder Geeks Elder Speak. Today is June 19th, 2013. My name is Randy Yasenchak. I'm the editor of ElderGeek.com. With me today is Steve Wilkinson? Wilkerson? Wrinkleson?
Wilkinson is fine. That'll do.
Steve Wilkinson, he hosts the Game Club with me we try to do every 2 weeks, but it doesn't always work out that way.
2 weeks-ish.
2 weeks-ish. We're kind of running into, some issues with the next episode because, scheduling time with Ireland is harder than we were predicting.
Yeah, but that's okay. We'll get it done.
Yeah, we'll hammer it out. But anyway, first things first, honestly, thanks everybody out there because today was a monumental day, not because of the X-Bone news, but because today we hit 20,000 subs, and honestly, it's all thanks to you guys for sharing our videos, for, throwing everything up on Facebook, following us on Facebook and spreading our stuff through Twitter and posting us on Reddit. And anyway, essentially, it's all thanks to you guys that we have now 20,000 subscribers, and I got to be honest with you, I never thought that this kind of day would come. When we first started doing ElderGeek.com, I was happy that we had 5,000 subscribers when we hit that first mark, and now 20,000 is kind of surreal to me. It's all thanks to you, Steve. You did it.
Yes. No problem. My pleasure. That is awesome. It's been exciting. We have a chat that we have with all the Elder Geek guys, talking throughout the day, and we were all kind of watching it go up, 5 here, 10 there, and then, it was pretty monumental. It was a good feeling.
Yeah, I had to post it on Facebook too. I normally don't mix my personal life with EG life. I know that sounds weird, but I work a 9 to 5, and I don't want those two worlds to collide at all.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way.
Yeah. But anyway, so honestly, thanks everybody. It's just outstanding, and it honestly is all thanks to you guys. I wish I had something as a giveaway, but I have like nothing. And as far as like all the swag that I got at E3, I've already kind of given away to family members. So I'll think of something. But anyway, second thing I wanted to talk about was actually to kind of wrap things up from E3. I have maybe one more video. I got to test out a Bayonetta video to see how well that turned out for Bayonetta 2. But I kind of wanted to just talk real quick about the new Thief game. Because I've actually been getting messages while I've been working during the day through like Skype and through Steam and everything like that. People asking me if I played Thief, and I did. I'm gonna call it right now, dude. This game should not be called Thief, and by the fact that they're calling it Thief is gonna be its biggest downfall.
I have heard a little bit here and there about it. I guess I just wasn't following the coverage of this game at E3 as much as some of the other stuff, but from what I have heard, it sounds like it deviates a bit from kind of that traditional formula of the original games.
And that's what's going to be the huge problem with it, man. It's because it looks like it's going to be a good stealth game. Like I don't want people to think like, oh, it's going to suck as far as a stealth game, because the stealth looked awesome. And in fact, they were saying, what they showed looked really similar to the stealth from Dishonored, and Dishonored had some really good stealth too. But they were saying you can play the whole game lethally as well. But they try to encourage you, like you get bonuses and stuff for playing non-lethally and silently, which is great. That's nice, but people are going to chew it apart. There's too many things that Thief purists are going to be mad about. For instance, if you're on a ledge over top of an enemy, there will be like a menu item that pops up on screen that'll say like R1 to knock out, and then you just tap the R1 button and it goes into this animation where it shows him like tackling the dude and clubbing him across the head.
Okay. Yeah.
It's little stuff like that, and then combat is like, instead of just kind of swinging like mad with Dishonored's combat, I gotta say I kind of like, because if there's more than one guy around you, you're probably gonna die. But with this, it's like they showed him combating two dudes at the same time, and it did like a slowdown, like Robert Downey Jr. from Sherlock Holmes, where it would show like the guy's Adam's apple and then like a weak point under his arm, and then he would just like quick time event like hit those points, and then it would again flash into a movie of like little combat. I think people are going to be kind of mad about that.
So it sounds like they're they're kind of trading off the satisfaction of their purest audience in the attempt of maybe trying to entice a broader audience, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you know what happens when you try to please everybody.
You end up pleasing nobody. Well, just to kind of round out my thoughts, it looks like they're going to break the game into, an entrance and stealing the item, and then an egress kind of situation. So you got to break in, you got to enter, you got to take the item, and then there's going to be like an action sequence where you kind of run away from, the people that are chasing you because you just stole this crazy valuable item. The sequence that they showed of an escape was he was crossing this gigantic bridge that was burning down, and while he was going through it, whenever he would have to climb really tall walls where you had to do some platforming laterally as well as vertically, the camera would pan back and it would give kind of an Uncharted / Lara Croft point of view. So it would go from first person point of view to third person point of view. I like that idea. It kind of makes the game a little bit seamless, and you're not going to get caught up in during the platformy parts. But again, stealth purists, and I shouldn't even say stealth purists, thief purists are going to get probably mad about this. I have no doubt that it's probably going to be a cool stealth game, but they really should not have called it Thief, just the same way that Syndicate should not have been called Syndicate. I liked Syndicate. I think I gave it a worth buying, but it shouldn't have been called Syndicate. They should have just given it a whole new name.
Right, just go with a new IP and just, change it enough that it, feels kind of like a spiritual successor to the Thief series, but isn't, passing itself off as a sequel.
Yeah, give the main character a whole new name, but that's going to be their biggest downfall. I guarantee it.
And hire Nolan North do the voice.
Right, and hire Nolan North to do the voice. Then you're good. You're squared away. But anyway, let's talk about today's other big news aside from the 20,000 mark was Xbox One coming forward, or at least I should just say Microsoft is coming forward, and they have dropped all of that crazy ass DRM that they had on the Xbox One after what can only be described as a PR nightmare, and then also for saying that it wasn't easy to just turn off the DRM. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm familiar with this story.
It blew up. I don't know about you, man, but I was getting messages like all afternoon.
No, I'm just, it was pretty crazy. I at first it popped up on, I first saw something about it on NeoGAF, and it wasn't really confirmed yet. It was kind of like, this is a rumor, and then the next thing you know, someone's posting a link in there with the link to the actual Xbox Live website with the announcement.
It was weird when it was on NeoGAF because it was a link to Giant Bomb that wasn't working, and then the link to the other website was something that I had never heard of before.
Yeah, it was some weird URL, and I was just like, okay, well this could be like someone who installed WordPress an hour ago and maybe just started throwing stuff on there. I mean, it could be, who knows? But yeah, then it went live, and it was like, wow, okay. So I guess, I can only imagine that maybe, they were really getting some solid pre-order numbers, coming in, and that maybe pushed them to do this. It seems weird. because they were sticking to their guns,
man, I got to admit, I think that the reason why they pushed to do this was, I think that, Angry Joe did that pretty popular interview with Major Nelson while we were at the show. But I don't think he was the only one that was going to Microsoft and asking those questions. You know what I mean? I'm sure a ton of other people were asking those same exact questions. And the other thing was, right after E3, there were all these, studies that were coming forward from independent groups saying like 74. It was like a range from 74 to 85% of gamers were going to go with the PlayStation 4 versus the Xbox One in the next generation. And when your gap is that big, when you are only like estimated 15% of your market, that's bad.
Yeah. I guess they had to make a decision now if they were going to follow through with it by November, because they're kind of it's almost July, so that only leaves them really 2 months until they really have to start having these things like rolling off the assembly line to get into stores by November.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it was kind of a shit or get off the pot moment for them, and obviously we know what they got off the pot, I guess.
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you, because you are a coder. They're saying like how hard it would be to like turn that off. to me, like I know some basic stuff. To me, that would seem like it would be a pretty simple, just remove the lines of code that were demanding the check every 24 hours, right?
I mean, look, I don't know. First of all, I'm not a game programmer. Although, really, what we're talking about here is
You're talking about an operating system.
An
program.
operating system level. I work primarily on large kind of. I don't even know how to explain them. I code like mainframe kind of software that is used internally for large corporations, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Proprietary things. So it's similar, and it really depends. I mean, what Microsoft was saying is, look, this is built into everything, into the entire operating systems, and that's why we can't just turn it off, because it touches everything. And that I understand, because I deal with that kind of stuff all the time, where you have one component and someone in the business says, oh, well, we'll just do this to this and it'll be fine. And you're like, well, no, actually, because that touches 3 dozen other things, which is like a ripple effect out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I took it. So,
maybe it's not as simple as just deleting that one paragraph of code to disable the 24-hour check.
Maybe the 24-hour check itself, yes, but what does that mean? What are the ramifications of turning that off as it relates to everything else in the system? I think that's really kind of what probably Major Nelson was referring to when he made that comment. It's funny. My personal opinion about this, I know you didn't ask, but
I'm curious about your personal opinion. Hit me, man.
I like the always online didn't really bother me that much. I never really had a problem with that. I mean, I have a problem with it for people who that can't. I empathize with people who aren't in a situation where they have an always online connection to play games. But typically, just about every device in my house that can be online is online, like 24/7. So to me, it wasn't something that bothered me. It was more of the whole, just the way they were pushing the DRM.
Yeah.
For physical discs, I don't mind DRM as it relates to digital copies of things. I think that for the most part, that's fine as long as it's within reason. I think that.
No, you're talking about the ones that people would go onto like the Xbox store and download on like day one or whatever.
Exactly.
As opposed to going to the brick and mortar store and picking up a disc.
Correct. When it comes to digital content, I am okay with certain level of DRM, as long as it's fair. I think we talked about this on Game Club last week. I think Apple does a pretty good job overall in that when you buy stuff from them, you can then download it onto all your different devices, as long as it's associated with your account, which is all I really care about as a user. I mean, if I buy an app, I want to be able to put it on my iPod, on my iPhone, on my daughter's iPod. I think Amazon does it really good with the Kindle. You can buy a digital movie on Amazon, and just about any device you own that has the Amazon app on it, you can load that movie up. I can put a book on my Kindle. I can put the same book on my wife's Kindle, and we can both read it at the same time on 2 different devices.
Yeah.
I think that that's a really fair treatment, but at the same time, I can't go just give it to anybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's okay.
I'm in the opposite boat as you, actually. I don't like the online check-in with the console, and it's because even right now with my consoles, because in my office I wish I could pan the camera over and it didn't show like just a mess in my office. But next to my tower, I've got my 360 and my PS3 and my Wii, and they're all kind of semi-wired into my PC and recording equipment. But I got to admit, when I'm playing games, if I'm not specifically playing a game that is online, I don't like to wire my console in. There's still something that bothers me about there's still something that really bothers me about like everybody knowing everything that I'm doing all the time. Firing up my PS3, I don't want or need people to know that I've just spent 12 hours playing Uncharted. Do you know what I mean? I like being able to unplug, and I think that's the one. That's like the final place that I like to go with consoles. It is because I'm offline with them.
I think an offline mode is fine. Yeah, I guess. I didn't mean to sound like I'm in, like it being a mandatory thing.
No. I get you. Yeah. I get you. I think most people will get you too.
And I definitely did not like the DRM as it related to the physical media at all. Yeah, I mean, as far as like if I buy a disc with something on it, I think that there's laws in place. Like people keep making the comparison to movies,
right?
Of saying you can't buy a movie and then rent it out to people because that's against the rules. Well, okay, obviously,
right.
But I can lend that movie to my father-in-law and say, hey, you should watch this. It's really good. I can, I can go to my library and check out movies from there and bring them home and return them, or go to Redbox. There's all these other options. And I think that that's just what people expect with physical media. And I know that Microsoft is trying to push us into this brave new era of
digital only.
Of how we think about things, and a physical copy is just a kind of a conduit to this digital version. But I just don't think we're there yet. Maybe in another 10 years it'll be a totally different thing. But I think right now people are just not ready to give that up. I'm not personally.
No, I'm not either. And people also keep making the comparison to Steam, saying like, oh, you can't do it with Steam, you can't give your games to Steam and everything like that. But you know what? I can still go to the store and buy a game that doesn't register on Steam and still lend it to someone. A lot of games are slowly one by one, moving over to Steam as their version of DRM. But I want to say that was partially made out of the decisions of the consumers who were PC gamers. Like PC gamers as a whole, for the most part, whether it was intentional or unintentional, or consciously or unconsciously, but PC gamers have moved into the digital, mostly medium on our own. Console isn't there yet. And what Microsoft really should have done was left it open. They should have that should have been one of the selling points for the Xbox One. They should have said, like, guess what? You can buy a physical copy and you can lend it out to everybody. Or you know what? You don't even need to waste your time going to a store or worrying about paying, tax. I don't know how their system is going to be there. You don't have to worry about parking or shipping or anything like that. You can just download it on the day that it releases. And now you have the option to download, digital versions of the same games that you can buy physically. That would have been an awesome selling point for Xbox One, but they blundered it big time by making it a mandatory thing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they just kind of didn't. I don't know. They didn't find the way to communicate it to people. They didn't find the way to get people excited about it. It just there was just too much. I think they were being intentionally vague, and it just manifested into all these bad feelings and people being pissed off. And people, it's been frustrating to me just kind of watching Twitter and some of the names that I follow. I'm not going to name anybody's names or anything like that, but people who report on video games, or people who are well known within the community of people like us who follow games, and just kind of, I don't know. I've been frustrated with some of the comments I've seen.
The slippage in professionalism, is that what you mean?
Yeah, a little bit. And you know what? I don't know what it's like for those people. I mean, I guess they deal with people being pissed off on the internet all day and constantly being a constant barrage of just negativity coming at them over Twitter. And so I don't know what it's like for them, but it just seems like a very kind of dismissive attitude towards the quote unquote gamers, just saying, oh, well, it's just people bitching on the internet again. That's all. People just bitch on the internet all the time. And yeah, they do. I mean, I'm not trying to paint some perfect world where everyone's when people, well-spoken.
Right, but when people bitch on the internet to this scale, then something's wrong. It's not just like, they changed the voice actor of my favorite video game character, change him back. This is a big deal. This is much bigger than just some minor change that in the end people are going to forget about in a couple of days. This is a massive shift in just thinking about the gaming culture as a whole. I truly do think that if I think Microsoft just handled it wrong. If they did offer both services, digital versus brick, and then they started doing things similar to what Steam does, where like, hey, guess what? You can get these older games now for like $5 a piece. I bet you that their digital library would pick up, and it would have happened naturally, and people would have been like, you know what, dude, Xbox One's pretty great because I'm getting a ton of great console games for ridiculously cheap, but.
Yeah, I'm glad they did this. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's, and I don't mean I'm glad that they did this in like a sticking it to the good,
Right.
We all showed them, that, not that kind of thing. I think it's good because I think, to be honest with you, I think it's going to give them more of a fighting chance.
Yes.
And I think competition is good.
Yes.
I love. See. I've had a great experience with both the Xbox and the Xbox 360, and I've had great experience with all of my Sony consoles over the last 18, 20 years, however long since the PlayStation 1 came out.
Yeah.
and I don't feel a personal allegiance to either of them.
Nope.
I mean, it's just it's a means to play video games, which
Yep.
I like to do, and I don't care. There's things I like about one, maybe a little more than the other, and vice versa. But I don't really.
And that almost seems to change with every generation too.
Yeah, and that was kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah.
I think history has shown us anything is that when Sony is unchecked and in the number one place, they can tend to maybe do some stupid shit. And I don't want, So I think if the two of them, they're like the Lennon and McCartney. If they just kind of keep each other in check, then we're gonna have another great 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of gaming ahead of us.
Yeah.
If one or the other is just running rampant and owning the industry, then
it's bad
we're in
news.
trouble.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
we've got Nintendo to go and play all the other, when you want to play Mario games or some weird
Zeldas,
or some crazy Japanese niche title that would never get released anywhere else, then they're there too. So I mean, we all win at the end of the day.
I do think this gives the Xbox One a fighting chance. I don't think they're out of the forest yet, because I think they lost a lot of goodwill. And look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. They lost a lot of goodwill, and for good reason too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I do think that Sony is not going to be the clear-cut winner just yet. I think at this point it's going to be who hits the street first, and if they both hit the streets before Black Friday, I think we might see a legitimate competition here. But if Microsoft for some reason, and I don't think Microsoft will, but if Microsoft for some reason slips past, into the December territory when they release, then they're going to be in real trouble. There is a dirty rumor that the PlayStation 4, I keep almost saying 3, but that the PlayStation 4 might actually release on at the end of October.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
If that's true, that's going to be bananas, man. I mean, they will just crush. Yeah.
It's going to be a fun holiday season. I know that for sure.
To say the least.
I mean, I am going to be broke, basically. I am just looking. I'm only buying the PlayStation 4 right now. I'm not planning on getting both consoles. I will say the Xbox for me went from probably not like ever to now being maybe someday.
Yeah, maybe in a couple of years.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, I feel like, and I feel there's probably a lot of people who are having that same thought process right now, and maybe kind of a silent majority of people who are just kind of like, okay,
And I think that maybe in a couple of years mentality is a pretty healthy thought process to go through too, because that gives people the time to see what Microsoft is actually going to be doing with their release, how their dashboard is going to work, how the download service works, everything. It's going to give Microsoft plenty of time to prove themselves to their market, and I think at this point they definitely need that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask, I was gonna say, if you ask me, I think they're definitely coming out of the gate way weaker than Sony this time.
Yeah. I think Sony has. I think it's just that whole perception and the way they sold, like kind of what we talked about on the last episode of Game Club. Microsoft has been presenting the Xbox as this all-in-one media experience, and that's going to appeal to some people. Sony's approaching it a little bit like that. They talked about TV a little bit during E3, but I think they've just been more honed in on this is a game console. We're we're in the business of making video games when it comes to PlayStation, and that's what we're doing. And I think that the best thing to do when you're putting out a new console is go after the gamers, get them invested, get them excited about it, and then the moms and dads and the grandmoms,
they'll fall in.
They'll fall in when the guy in his early 20s or whatever goes out and buys his 50-year-old father an Xbox so they can Skype to each other or whatever.
You know what? And it's also another thing. They'll fall in next holiday season, because this holiday season, it almost, I don't want to say it doesn't matter who hits the street first, because I still do think it is going to matter who hits the street first, but most of these initial consoles are going to be filled by pre-orders and guys like you and me who are rushing to the store to get their console as quickly as they can. There probably aren't going to be that many consoles left over for the moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas to buy it for their holiday gifts piles.
Yeah, and another thing we haven't really touched on is there still is that $100 difference in price.
That's a big difference too, man.
Especially, things are getting better economy-wise, but there's still a lot of people out there who are, either still not, finding work, or maybe they're just kind of getting back into the workforce, and things are still a little tighter, or people who are just kind of playing it conservative right now, which is a smart thing to do.
Yep.
Given the way things have been.
That $100 difference, that's enough for somebody who thought to themselves, I'm going to save $100 and get a PlayStation 4, and they can sit there and look at themselves and be like, if they had the extra $100, like say somebody has the extra $100, they could still look at the PlayStation 4 and go like, I can get the PlayStation 4 and put a really nice dent into a tablet, which I know is going to be integrated into games in the future, or I could put a really nice dent into a PlayStation Vita, which I know that they're integrating like that wireless connection to the system. So that $100 difference is, I think, a lot bigger than what most people are saying. Like $100 is $100, but that $100, if somebody even has that money, is still a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can also look at it as that $100 could also be a game,
or
two. It could be or a game and a controller, or
or a game
whatever.
And then your subscription to PlayStation Plus,
which then nets you I guess
then gets you
PS4,
2 games for that month.
Right, yeah. Have they announced what the second game is going to be? I know Drive Club's like the day one PS Plus game you're going to have when you turn on your PlayStation 4. You'll immediately...
Oh, really?
I don't know if they announced a second game.
I'm
that's
sure
gonna
they'll have something.
Yeah, they've been really consistent with nice stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing to consider also, and throw these guys out there again, is that, Nintendo's got a lot of games coming out the last 6 months of this year. And unfortunately, they're not hitting the Mario Kart or any of that, because those are the Mario Kart seems to be like a huge system seller for them. When Mario Kart 7 came out and they dropped the price, that was when the 3DSs started, really taking off.
It's a well-proven family game, and when you find that console and you find that game and they're there, you think to yourself, hey, this is going to be a great family fun thing to buy and play. So, yeah, that'll move systems for sure.
Yeah. So I think with a couple, with the 3D Mario world and some of that stuff, I mean, I just mean that the Wii U might become a little more attractive to a parent who's looking for a game console for their kid and for the holidays, and they look at that $500 Xbox, or they look at that $349 for the deluxe or something like that for the I think it's somewhere around there.
For the PlayStation 4?
No, for the Wii U.
For the Wii U. I got you. Yeah.
And I'm talking about younger kids. I'm not talking about like 15, 16-year-old kids who want to play Call of Duty. I'm talking about...
Right. And then also with the Wii U, there's still that advantage of people who don't have multiple TVs in their house. When you're like, Billy, get off the TV. I need to watch, whatever. You just hand them the controller and they go away and continue to play the game as though they were uninterrupted. So Wii U still has some big advantages. I will say this, and this is going to be my final say on the Xbox or the Microsoft PR fiasco, because that's all it really was. Their biggest mistake, and their biggest mistake was not clustering the Kinect in it. Their biggest mistake was not their price point. Their biggest mistake was really the way they treated their audience, the way they treated their customers. They treated it, and the kind of lackadaisical attitude they had towards people asking questions that were contrary to their plan. It was smarmy, and like you were saying before, it was almost like used car salesman like, and it was almost like, in not so few words, to the average consumer, myself included, it felt like shut up, you're gonna buy the system anyway, so just go along with the story here. And that just felt so wrong, And I think a ton of people just felt kind of used without even buying the damn thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that was, the biggest thing with public relations is, what it is right there in the title. It's public relations, and if you're doing a bad job of it, you're just gonna really screw yourself. I mean, that may sound really obvious to say, but having worked in that industry in the past, I can say that it's not always as clear cut as you would think.
No, but they had their work cut out for them back when that one dude tweeted like 3 months ago or something saying that the system was going to be always online, and then he had made that weird comment of like, yeah, I always have internet. Where do you live that you don't have internet all the time? I mean, they should have been like, whoa, we got to put this fire out right now.
That should have been a huge warning sign. Yeah, when that happened, it was like Adam Orth or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. That was his name. That was his name.
And he ended up in some circumstances departing from the company like a couple days after that. I don't know what, I don't think anybody knows the exact terms of what happened there, but yeah, so I mean that should have been a huge red flag when that happened and they had all that blowback. They should have been like, maybe we should try. And I think what they did at that point is that was when they started getting real hazy with the details.
Yeah.
And rather than just dealing with the situation and figuring out what their game plan was of, how do we, really let people know the advantages of this and not just let it be painted as this completely negative thing. They just started getting real gun shy and holding back stuff, which just,
Yeah.
nothing fuels a fire like oxygen, right? Or air. It just sucks up and creates a vacuum and boom, explosion.
Yeah,
So-
dude, they were just in huge trouble right as soon as they made that an official announcement, and then nobody had the same freaking story. Bad move. Well, anyway, hopefully this is a learning experience for every company out there for like how to not do PR. They could just watch, the Microsoft house burn down for practically in real time too.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my final thought would be is, I think this is a good thing, hopefully, and I hope that, like I said before, I hope that this the console comes out stronger in the end for it, and if there's two good consoles out there that are both doing well, then we all win pretty much. So.
Seriously, everybody kind of needs to know that if there's a healthy competition, it is good for gamers. It keeps costs down. It keeps a more diverse type of game coming out. So it is good for gamers. But we should actually head over and because we posted the story on our Facebook page and it kind of blew up, which is awesome. We got a ton of comments, and I kind of wanted to go through and hit on a couple of these. And now I can't find the ones that I wanted to read. Michelle writes, Microsoft is sinking, and this is a cry for help. Many people are already deciding what they're going to buy, and this might be too late for a lot of peeps. Got to admit, it's true for me in my case. I only have the money for one pre-order. Mm-hmm. And considering how big of a buzz was going around the PlayStation 4 and how much of a storm the Xbox One kind of went around, I made my pre-order purchase. You did too, yeah?
Yeah. I like I was joking. I was sitting there hitting F5 on Amazon until the pre-order button popped up, and then I was like, boop, right in the cart.
Yeah, done deal. I like this comment. Matthew writes, a great victory for the democratic power of capitalism. You come up with shit ideas and we'll make sure they don't reproduce. I wish that was so in like all regards of capitalism, but I think just in this case, that becomes true.
There's Nathan wrote, or Nate, I think they already used up a ton of goodwill. They will still need to work even harder to get people back to their system. I think maybe these are the first steps of that working harder. So
yeah,
let's try to be I'll try to be optimistic and hope for the best.
Antonis writes, so what happens now? Will people stick to PS4? I think a lot of people will. I think I'm predicting that the PS4 is going to sell out this holiday season. And I'm also going to predict that the people who can't get a PS4, if they've got that extra $100 in their pocket, they might take the plunge and grab an Xbox One if there happens to be any in the shelves.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it could happen. But then again, well, yeah, never mind.
This one was the one that I found the most fascinating. Delano writes, I'll now be getting both. They seem to have more exclusive, more diverse. They seem to have a much more, I think he's saying diversity in their exclusives between the PS3 and the 360, which felt redundant at times. I agree. Towards the end of their life cycles, the PS3 and the 360 did feel a little bit redundant. The good exclusives became few and far between. But this is the case all the time whenever there's a console launch. Like the beginning of the launch, there's always the good exclusives that kind of separate the two consoles. But as the life cycle of the console goes on, developers think to themselves, we really need to make back our money on that exclusive. Like, yeah, we might have sold a lot of copies here, but we'll sell even more if we sell it on the other platform as well.
I'm going to go ahead and I agree with what you just said. I don't know that I agree with what
Delano said?
Delano said, because I feel like the PS3 still has a lot of really strong exclusives coming to it. I mean, we just had The Last of Us release, which
That's true.
I just ordered because I came into a little money over
Nice.
Father's Day weekend, and I was like, you know
All
what,
right.
I'm gonna get a new game. I haven't bought like a brand new $60 game in a while. I was like, I'm getting The Last of Us. I have a kind of a weekend to myself coming up, so because the family's going away, and I'm gonna sit and play The Last of Us all weekend. So,
Nice. Nice.
um, but and then also, in the next few months, they've got games like the Beyond game. They've got the Kingdom's Heart 1.5, which I don't know that I would necessarily exactly say is an exclusive in that it's a remake or a HD upport. But
Is the Final Fantasy X-2 HD remake, is that an exclusive, or is that cross multiplat? I saw it at E3 and I didn't get a chance to dig around and find out if it was multiplat or not.
I am not 100% sure on that. My gut, for some reason, I think it's coming to Vita and Vita and PS3.
Okay.
I don't ever remember hearing that it was coming to the Xbox, but I can't say that 100%.
I know it's a re-release, but that'd be a big exclusive, I think, for either one of those two to get.
I do agree that there's been a lot of pretty much everything now comes out on both. Any third-party game comes out on both, but I do think that I think that the PS3 has had a pretty good amount of exclusives, even as we kind of I think it probably has another year or two left in its life cycle, but I guess we're technically wrapping up as we're getting ready to go into a new generation.
Which is kind of the exact opposite of 360, because the 360 started off with awesome exclusives. They had the whole Gears of War series going on. They actually, for a little while, Call of Duty was kind of exclusive to the Xbox as well.
Yeah,
for a real little bit, and then they ported them over to PS3 later. And there was other games too that were exclusive to Microsoft for a bit, and then they started doing ports over to the PS3. So initially they were there, but
yeah, because the original Mass Effect was
right,
and I think
that was a big one.
Yeah, that was because I remember listening to like podcasts, and they were like, Mass Effect will never come to the PS3, never. They had the original Dead Rising was an exclusive. Obviously, Halo is exclusive. And then what else?
Did I mention Gears of War?
Gears of War, yeah. Oh yeah, that was a game.
It was 3 of them. 4 now?
Yeah, 4. Good lord. And they have Rare. So I mean, you had games like Cameo, and then the Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts game came out, and people can argue whether or not they were great, but I mean, they had some interesting stuff going on in them.
Now, I agree with Delano to an extent. Like I said, at first they will have pretty diverse exclusives, but I think it's one of those situations where I don't think consumers should get both at launch. I think people should get one, pick one, whatever your affiliation might be, if you have one, and then wait a couple of years, wait 3-4 years, and see what exclusives are still exclusive, because a lot of those might get ported over. A lot of those exclusives might suck. And then you might also look at that list of exclusives over 3 years and think to yourself, is this pile of games, is this pile of like what might only be 3 to 5 games, is that worth $500 of my money?
I think in this generation, as far as exclusives go, I think that unless it says Microsoft Game Studios or Sony Computer Entertainment when you put the disc in the machine, I think at some point it's a safe bet you will see it on the other console. I just think the days of third-party exclusives are kind of going out the window, unless it's a case like Capcom put out Dead Rising, but Microsoft is public. That's correct, right? That's a Capcom franchise, Dead Rising, but Microsoft Game Studios is putting it out, so that's one that you will most likely never see show up on PS4. But that said, that there's other ones that may, like for example, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I seem to remember during the E3 coverage hearing that Titanfall was a timed exclusive, probably.
I had heard that too.
Yeah, it hasn't been confirmed because they were kind of in that shady time when no one really wants to come out and say stuff like that, as it will influence buying decisions.
Yeah, the other one was The Division. Everybody was like kind of scared that Division was not going to be on PC, and then they just did that big, huge petition, and something like 50,000 people signed it in like 2 days, and so now there is the possibility of The Division coming to PC. The other big push for what console people are going to buy is going to be like what consoles their friends buy. Like if all of your friends buy a PlayStation 4, are you going to be the goofball that goes out and buys a Microsoft console, because you're not going to have anybody to play with. And a lot of these games are going to have connected options to them. Watch Dogs is going to have that Dark Souls type integration system. Trying to think of some other games. Destiny looks like it's basically a Borderlands type game where sure you can play it single player, but it looks like it's gonna be a ton more fun when you're gonna have multiple people online. So
we shall see.
Yeah, I'm that's it. I'm kind of out of chatter.
Yeah, me too. It was definitely an interesting day. I did not see that coming. So
today was Crazy Face, which by the way, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, and maybe I'll do in an edit real quick. The game that you might have been watching in the background is going to be Mag Runner Dark Pulse, which I'm posting my review for it right now, which is probably going to be live before this video goes live. It is a Portal-esque 3D platformer game by Frogware and published by Focus Home Interactive. It is bananas.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check that. I haven't played it yet. I'll have to check it out.
It's, I'll kind of give my quick 2 cents here before anybody goes out and checks it out. It is not as refined as Portal. Like, it's hard to become as a refined of a game as something put out by Valve.
This is true.
But, I mean, because they playtest the crap out of their games. If you listen to the developer diaries on their games, they're like, well, we found that the smooth jazz joke went over better than, all the other jokes we had. I mean, they playtest their jokes, for crying out loud. Mm-hmm. But, so anyway, this is coming from, like, a very small to mid-range developer, and it is hard. It makes Portal seem like a cakewalk. These puzzles, like, I was banging my head on my desk last night getting this thing done.
Nice.
Yeah. But that's it, everybody. Steve, thanks for hopping on, bud.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Hey, everybody, once again, thanks for our 20,000 subscribers. Couldn't have done it without you guys. That's it. Talk to you all soon. Take care.
Thanks, guys.